Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to review the animated shows. So let's start with the Clone Wars cartoons. I remember I actually really liked the first one, the one that came out right before episode 3, and it tied into the movie really well, by the way. And I really liked that one because it was very focused, like it was very short episodes, I think only a few minutes each episode, and it was very action packed, and it was really done in an epic way, like everything was exaggerated, and I loved that kind of style, that kind of artistic, exaggerated, overhyped version. Like everything was really hyped up in a fun way. It was a very fun show in my opinion. So it basically took place between episode 2 and episode 3, and it showed the fleet battles, it showed all the stuff that I like, and also some lightsaber duels, and again everything was done in an even more fun way than in the movies, even though I'm not so sure that would be a good idea to do in the actual movies because it would seem too unrealistic if it's been done with the actors, but in the animation I think it was perfect. So I really loved the way that everything was exaggerated, and it was very short episodes, not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of story, it basically was just action packed, but it was fun, so I really liked that series. And some things they did even better than the other show or the movie. For example, General Grievous, remember, they made him really scary. They made him like a monster in those cartoons. He was a really force to be reckoned with, and so that was so much more fun than those later versions in which he was just a pathetic villain, kind of running away always, not really scary. And so I think I prefer that original Clone Wars cartoon. I think it's better than the one that came later, which was also okay. It was also fun, and some episodes were really good, but also because they were longer episodes and they actually had to fill it with stories and characters, it wasn't really done that well. Like sometimes I remember it was boring, and also I think it was a missed potential as well, because I think if you finally have an actual series set in the Star Trek universe, then that's your opportunity to maybe explore some science fiction elements, maybe explore some topics which the movies never touched upon. But they didn't really do that. I remember I felt kind of a missed opportunity. They never really explored the science fiction concepts, and even character-wise, it was an opportunity to really do something more with the characters, especially Anakin, since one of my complaints about the prequel is that they didn't really do it well with his character and his transformation, which would be so interesting, and so the TV show was an opportunity to do that. I know they did that a little bit, but I think it should have been much more. They could have done so much more with that character. Of course, they were limited by the fact that there is a movie afterward, and so they couldn't go all the way. So that was a limiting factor. That's one of the problems with prequels in general, by the way, that you cannot do anything you want. So I do know they did that a little bit, which is good. It adds something to those prequels, but also some episodes were really boring and not that good, and it felt like they're dragging it out too long. So I remember at the beginning it was good, later it was basically the same thing again and again. So another battle on another place, another lightsaber duel, another space battle. Like after a while I remember it became kind of boring, and they should have really added more complex stories, but they didn't. So what do I think about Star Wars Rebels? That is set between episode 3 and episode 4, which again I think had so much potential to fill in so many gaps and to play around with the whole galaxy, but again I think it was disappointing, and I didn't even watch that entire show, so maybe I could be wrong, maybe they did that later. I couldn't really watch it because I felt it was too childish, like maybe when I watched the previous ones I was a kid myself, so maybe that's why it seemed fine to me, but the series Rebels, I think it just felt too childish for me and I couldn't really get into it. And also the animation itself felt kind of lazy, kind of cheap, and so I didn't like the way everything looked, and I didn't like the characters, and the stories were way too simplistic and predictable, and so it felt not for me. It felt like aimed for kids, and so I didn't continue watching that. I followed it a little bit just to know what's going on there, and it didn't seem very interesting, and again felt like a missed opportunity. They could have done a lot more, and so that's my thoughts on that show. And also there's a whole bunch of short Star Wars cartoons on YouTube. There is that series Forces of Destiny, which seems to jump all over the place. It's not set in any specific time in the Star Wars universe, but seems to be jumping all over the timeline. So one episode is about Luke meeting Yoda. By the way, that's the only good episode in my opinion. Other ones take place during Rebels, others take place during the Clone Wars or during one of the original movies. So they seem to jump all over the place, and they are pretty short, so that's an advantage because otherwise it would be way too boring. So I think there was one good episode in which they showed us how Yoda is training Luke, and that's an example of something that they add to the original, something that expands upon the original in a good way, because it was actually interesting. Also, there was one set during The Last Jedi, which showed how Rey is training herself. which is one of the most annoying things in that movie, by the way. They missed the opportunity to actually show Luke training Rey. And even in this short, they show that Rey is basically training herself. But the thing I do like is that they show that she does need some training, and it's funny how she uses the porgs to train herself, so she pulls the porg with the force to learn how to pull things, and that explains how later she was able to try to pull the lightsaber into her hand in episode 8. So at least it explains how she learned that. Still, it's annoying that Luke didn't actually teach her anything almost, but at least it's something, and it was kind of a cute short, so also that one I kind of liked, but all the other ones I didn't really like. By the way, there was a much older Star Wars cartoon. I checked it out once, it didn't look very impressive, so I didn't really watch it. And now we have a new cartoon on YouTube called The Galaxy of Adventures, and they basically take all kinds of scenes from the original movies and remake it with animation, and again kind of over-exaggerate everything, but it's kind of fun. It's the same style as that first Clone Wars that I liked, in which everything was kind of overhyped, everything was epic, in a fun way, in an entertaining way, and so I do like this visual style. Some people might complain that it damages the continuity of the original movies because they show things happening slightly differently, but I am kind of okay with that because it's fun. The way they did that, they did capture the spirit of the original most, and I know about that controversial episode, I'll get to that soon, but in most episodes, I don't mind that they change things because they kind of change them for the better. They do it even better than the originals, and they do keep the same spirit, the same idea, and they just over-exaggerate everything to make it more epic, so that actually is kind of fun. So I did kind of enjoy watching those, and they use the same voices from the original actors and the same basic plot, so I wouldn't actually mind, even if they redo the whole original movies in this style, it might be entertaining, because everything is much more artistic, everything is much more epic, so it does make everything more fun. Now, that recent episode which got everyone angry was the one which featured Princess Leia and her escape from the Death Star, which was from the original movie, in which Luke and Han and Chewbacca broke her out and helped her to escape. And now in the original movie, she really was a very powerful character, meaning she wasn't just a damsel in distress, she wasn't just a woman who cannot do anything and only needs to be rescued. She did take a gun, she did shoot some stormtroopers, she did help out in her own rescue, which is one of the good things in that character, which is why she was not just the stereotypical female character who needs to be rescued by a male, and so that is something that I do like in the original. Now, the way they did it in this cartoon, they basically took that idea and over-exaggerated it, and they made all the male characters look ridiculous in comparison, and that's what made so many people angry, because it's kind of the same thing like they did with Rey, the same kind of thing they are doing in so many movies nowadays. They take a female character, and to make her look good, they have to humiliate all the male characters, and that pisses off a lot of people. So I understand this criticism. Now, I think maybe it wasn't intentional in this case, meaning maybe they just wanted to make it funnier, and so all those things they did were simply designed to be funny. And so I'm not even sure if there was some kind of brain behind the things they did in this episode, so I'm not sure about that. So that's why I have some mixed feelings, because I kind of suspect whoever did that simply wanted it to be funnier, but they definitely did want to take that trait of Leia and to over-exaggerate it. But it's the same thing they did in the other episodes as well. They took the same idea and over-exaggerated it, and so in this case they took the idea of Leia being a strong, independent woman, and they simply exaggerated it even more. And so I don't really have a big problem with it. The only problem, I think, is the fact they kind of humiliated the male characters to make her look so much better than them. And so that's the real mistake. If they kept the other characters also awesome, if they showed that they're also great and heroic and strong, and she's just like one of them, that would be fine. There would be like equality. But because they humiliated the males, then that becomes kind of the opposite of the problem that really used to exist. Like in the past, female characters really were stereotypically weak and all of that. And so I have no problem with the desire to make things more equal. The problem is they're now reversing the table, doing everything upside down to the exact same problem that used to be. So now they're making the male characters into idiots, and only the female characters are the best at everything. And so it does feel very forced and artificial, and that's the whole Mary Sue problem which now exists in so many movies and shows. And so I do add my own criticism to it, but the way people react to it, I think, is also way exaggerated. It's just a cartoon, it was supposed to be just more funny this way. So I think maybe some of that hate is exaggerated, the way people react to it, as if I don't know what happened. So I don't share that over-exaggerated outrage over all of this. But I do get the point, and maybe it's a good thing there is some outrage so that the people in charge will think twice at any decision they make, and to make everything carefully, to respect all the original characters and not try to rewrite history to serve some kind of agenda. And so maybe that huge amount of criticism is good to make all the creators be careful and to really think about all sides of everything they're planning to do. And so that's a minor complaint of this new show, but overall I kind of liked it. I liked that animation. One thing I kind of disliked is that they changed the appearance of Luke so much that he almost appears like a little boy or a little girl, so as if they made him into a little kid. Now the show might be aimed at kids, so maybe that's why they did that. They wanted the kids to see themselves in Luke, so maybe it's deliberate. But that kind of changes the original too much, in my opinion. But other than that, I think it looks great. Actually, I enjoyed a lot of these episodes, and so I wouldn't mind them making more. I wouldn't mind to see more of that because it was fun. And it doesn't really replace the original. You can always watch the original movies. It's not as if they're erasing the original movies and replacing them. So I guess some people might complain about that it's basically a remake of the original movies. I wouldn't call it a remake because they're it's more like a compilation. They're even showing all kinds of scenes which took place during the prequels, and again everything is exaggerated, so it's more like an artistic retelling of the same story, so I don't actually have a problem with that. So that's my opinion on all the Star Trek cartoons that I've seen. Let me know what you think in the comments below and we can discuss it. If you enjoy my content, click the notification bell as not to miss my new videos, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.